Good morning, everyone. Today we will discuss about martial law from 1972 to 1981. First, what is martial law? Kinsa sa inyo diri ang kabalo unsay martial law? Pataas og kamot, balag brief description lang. Sige, sige.
Martial law formed during the presidency of Ferdinand Marcos, and I can say that it is very controversial. At the same time, the Filipino people as well as the country is at least survived during those times.
Sakto, no? Sakto. Sakto muna siya ang martial law or history sa martial law. Pero kung i-define ang martial law defines the temporary imposition of military control over civilian government, typically during extreme emergencies like war, rebellion, or natural disasters. When civilian authorities are unable to function, it involves suspension of normal civil rights and legal processes. And military authorities gain broad powers to make and enforce laws, restore orders, and administer justice effectively, replacing civilian rule with military authority. Pero kung saan siya ang pasot na ko nga pasot nga ang barangay, ang inyong mga tanod, wala sila'y power. Ang mabuhat nga ni kay ang mga polis, militar, sila ang sa power, sila ang buhat sa mga balaod. Pasot nga ni bisan ang inyong mayor, wala kayo'y power during this time. Ang characteristic dahil sa martial law is temporary. Dili siya maingon nga kada hangtod sa kahangtod. Military authority, mas gadako ang military authority kay sila na ang ka-impose of law. Nasa suspension of rights of justification. Pasabot nga ni walay hearing para sa imuhang mga sila. Pasabot nga ni dili na kaibutang sa kanang dili na ka maagtog korte para mapriso ka. Napadayo purpose nga ng lugar, nasa purpose restoring order in case of emergency response. Common measures, curfews. Kanang dili mo pwede nasa gawas kung 8 na, kung 9 na. Detentions, kung makita mo nga magsalaag, pwede mo i-detain nila, bisan pa og wala kay gibuhat na problema. Then movement restriction, bawal mo makalarga-larga o dali-dali padulong sa Malay-Balay, to Cagayan de Oro, bawal maagto, to Cagayan, to Maramag, and so on and so forth. Now, in September 21, 1972, through Proclamation number 10, why is that cut out?
1081.
Marcos placed the entire country under martial law. Why? Kinsay kabalo ngano si Marcos ato nga time 1972 nag-impose og martial law sa tas og kabalo. Yes, Ezekiel.
Not really the main reason, but it is one of the main reasons why martial law is implemented. So the first is, I can only say, is the growing insurgencies of CPP and NPA, which resulted to Ferdinand Marcos to impose martial law because to regulate and as well as to control the insurgencies that the people committed na tungkol lagi sa corruption and as well as that. So he employed martial law. It is one of the reasons why ako lang
Sakto, no? Sakto. One of the main reasons nga nakadagay og mga rebelde. Kay during that times, turmoil was very present in our country. Nagkagubot. And in those times, ang atong tao, ang countrymen, nag-appeal sa mga rebelde. Pero that discussion, I will leave it to my partner para iladyong in-depth ang discussion pa na. So, that will be all. I will call Jefferson for the next point.
My name is Jefferson H. Saison, and these are the terms or key points you need to remember. First is the 2 years, 1965 and 1972. The second is the first quarter storm, and lastly is social volcano. 2 years in 1965 to 1972 witnessed the holding of massive student rallies, transport strikes, farmers, workers, and urban poor demonstrations, as well as protest marches by teachers, doctors, doctors, lawyers, and other professionals. All of them were compelling those in authority, in particular President Marcos, now on his second term, to give in their legitimate demands. But what were these demands? How did the government respond to these demands? The political, economic, social, educational, military, and moral conditions in the country have reached their critical level. Philippine society at this time was a social volcano that was ready to erupt. And kabutuhon sa kaulit, kasuko, kapuot nila kay Marcos and other political, and Marcos declared martial law, which according to him would prevent further chaos and give him a extended term of office to reform Philippine society. So, wait lang. The first quarter storm. In the 1969 president election, Marcos was re-elected for a second term, but it was marked by allegations or electoral fraud. This led for the development of what we call the first quarter moon. But what is the first quarter storm? The first quarter storm was a series of violent.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Frances Angelis Valvega, and this is my assigned report, The Crisis in the Society. So, what were the conditions in the country that caused so much cynicism and hopelessness that forced primarily to the youth to march to the streets in violent protest? Makiba ka, huwag matakot. It means to dare to fight, do not fear. When the famous students' battle cry. Students protested the unprecedented government overspending during Marcos' re-election campaign. The infusion of so much money into an unproductive electoral activity caused inflation. Prices are commodities, including the cost of tuition fees, rose way beyond the ordinary people's means. Because of slow industrial characterized mainly by packaging factories and low wages received by workers, unemployment reached millions in the late 60s and early 70s. The overseas employment phenomenon was not yet institutionalized during this period. Militant unions led discontented workers into strife and joined in the jeepney drivers who protested the high cost of fuel. Big businesses were in the hands of aliens like Americans and Japanese. Party rights had been favored foreign businesses' interests at the expense of Filipino capital. Marcos cronies and businessmen enjoying huge loans and other economic privileges because of their close links with the administration disadvantages other businesses whose has this poor performance led to closures of their firms. This led to a greater labor unrest. Agriculture were in a similar state. Rice importation in the hands of cartels enriched government, cronies, and even their relatives. Small and medium-scale rice farmers suffered, in spite of some grains to reduce tenancy under the Marcos Land Reform Program. Peasants and the majority remained poor and discontented. And that's all for my report.
Good day everyone, I'm Megan Vaco and I'll be talking about one of the major threats during this period, the Communist insurgency led by the Communist Party of the Philippines and its armed wing, the New People's Army or NPA. During this time, the NPA claimed its biggest number of recruits, as more Filipinos, especially those from the lower and working classes, became frustrated with the government. The widespread poverty and inequality made it easier for the communist movement to gain sympathy and support. At the same time, the government had a pro-American stance, even as an issue of abuse in the U.S. military and naval bases in the Philippines became more visible. This created a resentment among Filipinos who felt that their leaders were prioritizing foreign interests over their own citizens. Economically, the situation was worsening. Prices of goods and fuel went up. Millions were unemployed and stable jobs were rare, since the OFW system wasn't common yet. Workers went on strikes, students protested, and families struggled to make ends meet. Basically, everyone was struggling, students, workers, and families alike. This frustration created the perfect environment for movement like the CPP and PA to grow stronger.
Good morning everyone, I am Ezekiel James and Inciso, and for my topic, I will be further discussing the first quarter storm. Although the first quarter storm was mentioned earlier, I will be providing a more context and as well as more information about it. So firstly, I would like to put emphasis on the different bullets laid out to guide you about the lesson or topic that I will be discussing. Firstly is number one, it refers to the first 3 months of 1970, which was a tumultuous here in the country. Number two, it began in January 26, 1970, before the Legislative Building. Number three, Constitutional Convention. Number four, Liza Balando, a young labor leader. Number five, March to Mendiola, and lastly is the Liman Commune. So to begin with, the term first quarter storm refers to the first 3 months of 1970, which was a tumultuous years in the country. Waves of massive student protests occurred in Metro Manila and nearby provinces. On January 26, 1970, hundreds of students gathered before the Legislative Building to protest President Marcos' plan to convene a constitutional convention that would extend his term beyond what was allowed by the 1935 Constitution. So, student activists and as well as student leaders marched in order to stop the constitutional convention, which would result to Marcos's extension of his term as presidency before. While on his way out of the building after delivering his address to Congress, Marcos was suddenly blocked in his path by an object hurled at him. Confusion ensued like a bolt of lightning. Gunshots reverberated in the air. Hundreds were hurt in the melee. And Liza Balando, the young labor leader, was hit by a stray bullet and fell dead. So one of the student leaders before, a student activist named Liza Balando, was critically hit by a stray bullet and fell dead. Since then, the march to Mendiola would mean the people's demand for serious reforms and disillusionment over the government capacity to deal with the vital issues of the day. The rest of the year will witness more protests. Teachers who were frustrated over delayed salary increase went on a massive leave. Students at the Militant University of the Philippines took control of the campus in a siege lasting 12 days, known as the Diliman Commune. Violence escalated into the regions and provinces from Baguio, Davao, and Cagayan de Oro to the Mindanao State University in Lanao del Sur. Students demanded educational reforms and jobs upon graduation. So in line with that, massive employees and students were in a critical turmoil before because the country is in a complete chaos, and as well as the administration before was trying its best to control and to regulate the situation. They clamored for honest officials and pro-people laws and policies, since they awakened daily to rampant graft and corruption. From the word graft and corruption is very rampant at last. Criminality and repressive measures to control their right to dissent. Critics of the protest movement, however, wrote that the naked force that was used against them was provoked by the students lobbing Molotov cocktails at the police. So it resorted to the fact that students utilized Molotov cocktails and as well as other weapons to express their clear reason and as well as their clear deviance to the government. A clear case of misuse of freedom, asympathetic, and they clamored for honest officials and pro-people laws and policies. Since they awaken daily to rampant graft and corruption, that is really an evident fact, as I have said before. So next is oppositionist officials like Senator Eva Estrada Calao, on the other hand, denounced the unwarranted use of police force as this breach of human freedom that belied the president's fine words, not to slaughter the innocents for the students. Demands were legitimate and timely, so that is quoted. So I would like to further summarize what I have said as regarding to the PPT. So there are key concepts in that, which is there are rampant student activisms and rampant student leaders protesting to Marcos, and the people have awakened their insights and their thoughts about the administration before, which really resulted into a very chaotic, and as well as in the country is in a turmoil situation, and it would mean that the people would like to express themselves in a violence way, as it have said in the my reporting. So therefore, it would it really resulted into a very traumatic and as well as a chaotic response by the people towards the government. So that would be all for my topic.
Good morning, I'm John Rizal Panugaleno. And so, to start. Meanwhile, academics, professionals, businessmen, including non-seminarians and priests who were all formerly disinterested in politics, joined forces. They wanted a new constitution to replace the 1935 constitution, which they describe as colonial. Being a product of U.S. dictation, groups of nationalist and liberal politicians supported their call. In the election of delegates to the convention, their coalition won 1/3 of the seats. The rest were won by Marcos allies and sympathizers in June 1971. The Constitutional Convention opened electric former President Carlos Garcia as its president. Garcia, who died several days later, was succeeded by Diosdado Macapagal. President Marcos' predecessor, the debated in the convention, focused mainly on the issue of shifting the form of the government from presidential to a semi-parliamentary or parliamentary system. In the debate, it became evident that the pro-Marcos delegates mandated a parliamentary form. Under the 1935 Constitution, the tenure of the president was limited to 2 terms of a maximum of 8 years. Marcos, who was on his second term, was barred from running for a 3rd term. As newspaper accounts of the days wrote, there were signs that Marcos was trying to influence the shape of the new constitution, favoring a change in government, and that Marcos intended to run as a congressman in this district in Ilocos Norte. Under the parliamentary form of government, to become the prime minister. This would extend his stay in power after his second term in office. While the debates were going on, student demonstration near the convention area continued. As historian Rosario Mendoza Cortes put it, demonstrations fitted well into the secret plans of Ferdinand Marcos. Citing Primitivo Mijares, a Marcos confidant who later defected as her source, Mendoza Cortes wrote, Marcos closely monitored the revolutionary drama of the early. The demonstrators, military, Cywar psychological warfare experts, staged or instigated demonstrators with slight variations in time. a pattern of early demonstrations in the downtown area alternating between 5 o'clock in the afternoon and 9 o'clock in the evening was established. Marcos issued statement on a supposed contingency plan to deal with a supposedly deteriorating situation. So, thank you.
Good morning everyone, my name is Benedict Matthew Padilla. Today I'm going to tackle about what really happened before the martial law, or what is the truth behind the martial law declaration. Proclamation 1081 dated September 21, 1972 was actually signed four days earlier. Prior to its signing, series of mysterious bombing incidents took place. All of these were blamed on the activist organization in urban centers with links to the countryside rebels, such as the Communists. The former allies of Marcos claimed later that these incidents were part of Marcos' plan to sow anarchy, terror, fear, and despair to preconditions for the imposition of martial law. The fake ambush of then Secretary of National Defense Juan Ponce Enrile served as the signal for its formal declaration on 23rd of September. First on the list of the people arrested was Senator Benigno Aquino Jr., who had a plan of running for president in 1973. The rest included outspoken journalists and writers, oppositionists, politicians, labor union leaders, student activists, and radical delegates to the Constitution Convention who were against the extension of Marcos' term under a new constitution and a form of government with PD. With PD 1081, Marcos assumed all powers of government, executive, judiciary, and legislative. Military courts took the place of regular courts except for civil cases. Surprisingly, the nation received the proclamation in silence with calmness. In short, opposition were arrested, TV, radio, newspaper shut down, military controlled the country, and no freedom of speech. That's all.
Once again, I am Mark, and I'm here to add on what Ben said. To allay the fears of people, Marcos went in air to give the message. I assure you, I am utilizing the power vested in me by the Constitution to save the Republic and reform our society. With the persisting negative political, economic, and social problems, the declaration of martial law appeared to be justified for the majority. He also announced that martial law, which suspended constitutional rights, was only for a limited period of time. He said that he needed time and force of arms to crush the communists as well as the Muslim successionist rebels in the south. His critics, however, were quick to rebut Marcos' justification. They argued that martial law was declared to save Marcos and not the Republic. Marcos wasted no time. Within the next few months, he tried to restore peace and order, cleaned up the government of its corrupt and efficient personnel to cut down criminality, and set up a systematic plan to develop the economy. But to many activists who were detained, tortured, and even killed upon the declaration of martial law, Marcos' words and plans amounted to nothing but empty premises and pure rhetorics. On the surface, martial law seemed to have restored order, but in time, as months turned into years, the Marcos regime, backed by military, would reveal that more than reforming on society. The intent was to crush dissent and hostility to his plan to stay in power for indefinite length of time. But during this, Marcos wasted no time in clearing up his enemies, those politicians who oppose him, those politicians who oppose his regime, because it was clear that the intention of Marcos in imposing martial law was to stay in power, to stay longer than his intended term, which is also why he proposed repose the change of the Constitution of 1935. And yes, that will be all.
I'm Troyan Dongfor. I present to everyone the resistance and opposition, the student movement, underground press, and religious opposition. When Ferdinand Marcos declared martial law in 1972, he silenced dissent by closing Congress, censoring media, and drilling opposition leaders. However, that repression gave rise to underground resistance, student activists, writers, and civic groups continued the struggle for freedom through secret publication and propaganda that exposed government abuses. The underground press, such as Ang Bayan, Liberation, Malaya, and Reform, spread banned information that awakened public consciousness. Religious leaders, particularly the Catholic Church under Cardinal Johnson, also became the voices of moral resistance, denouncing human rights violations, salvaging, and disappearances. Civic and religious organizations provided safe space for protest and become instrumental in reviving mass movement of democracy. Economic decline and the lifting of martial law. Although Marcos promised a new society of discipline and progress, his authoritarian reign led to massive corruption, cronyism, and economic collapse. His infrastructure project, funded by heavy foreign borrowing, worsened national debt and poverty in 1981. Marcos formally lifted martial law, partly to appease critics and impress the visiting Pope John Paul II. However, the suspension of habeas corpus continued, and Marcos retained his power to issue decrees, making the lifting largely symbolic. By this time, unemployment was high and the people were growing restless. Underground movements, civic groups, and church networks intensified their campaigns, while student and labor union held strike and noise barrage to show differences. Assassination of Ninoy Aquino and rise of people power. In 1983, assassination of Senator Benigno Ninoy Aquino Jr. upon his return from exile shocked the nation and turned grief into outrage. His death united Filipinos across social classes, students, clergy, business leaders, and middle class against the Marcos dictatorship. The massive funeral procession became the protest, inspiring continuous demonstrations demanding justice and reform. This event set the stage of renewed political activism, culminating in the 1986 snap election where Corazon Cory Aquino, Ninoy's widow, ran against Marcos. Despite widespread cheating, the people rallied under the call for civil disobedience with NAMPRAL, volunteers and computer technicians exposing the fraudulent vote count. In 1986, People Power Revolution and constitutional reforms. On February 20 to 25, 1986, millions gathered along EDSA to support military detectors and demand Marcos' resignation. Cardinal since Radio April brought together civilians, nuns, presses, and students who faced thanks with prayer and flowers. This peaceful uprising, now known as the People Power Revolution, ended 2 decades of dictatorship as Marcos fled to Joaquin Cory Aquino assumed the presidency and oversaw the drafting of 1967 Constitution, which restored democracy, strengthened civil liberties, and imposed term limits to prevent future authoritarian rules. The legacy of people power endures as symbol of unity and peaceful resistance, leaving a lasting impact on Philippine politics and society. Thank you.